Let's preview the Los Angeles Dodgers for 2026 up next on Fantasy Baseball Today. Welcome to On the Beat, our mini team preview series here at Fantasy Baseball Today. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Sonja Chen, who covers the Dodgers for MLB.com. And I see you have a cat. We have a lot of those make appearances on our podcast as well. Our buddy Chris Towers, one of our hosts here, he gets frequent visits from his cats as well. So totally fine. Very welcome here. Make sure to give Sonja a follow on X at Sonja M. Chen. And let's just get into the Dodgers offseason. The rich get richer. Back-to-back World Series champs. They added two of the best players in baseball this offseason. First up, Edwin Diaz on a 3-year deal. And then they broke the baseball world by signing Kyle Tucker to a 4-year deal that includes multiple opt-outs. This feels like the best Major League roster that has ever existed. Do you see them doing anything else this offseason? I know Andrew Friedman just said that they're not in the market for starting pitching. I hope he's telling the truth. I don't know. What do you think?
I think when it comes to the Dodgers and their off seasons, you have to take anything that they say with a grain of salt. This is my second season covering the team, second off season also, and is this normal? For this team, yes, but yes. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I think I'm somewhat inclined to agree that they might be done with the big moves, at least. They tend not to close any doors, I'll say. If they see some sort of opportunity, then they'll explore it. It's kind of what happened with Diaz and what happened with Tucker, where both of them definitely could have been in line for bigger contracts, but the Dodgers saw the opportunity to get something, to get them on a deal that was a little more palatable to them. And here they are. They're both Dodgers. So, I would be a little surprised if they do anything else big, but I would not expect it.
Yes. All right. Well, hopefully they're done. I think about things like Tarek Skubal or Freddie Peralta, and I just can't put it past the Dodgers. Let's get into a few fantasy questions here for them. And as a fantasy community, we are all very excited about Emmet Sheehan and what he did last season, especially down the stretch. I know he wasn't as good in the postseason, but obviously has amazing stuff. Do you believe that Emmet Sheehan is assured a rotation spot as of now heading into 2026?
It's kind of a tricky question because I think he... right now, he might be their fifth best starter. They've been more committal to Roki Sasaki having a spot in the rotation. But then again, because of Shohei Ohtani and his two-way player status, they can very easily go with a 6-man rotation. And so I think ultimately for most of the season, even if, the 4 starters ahead of Sheehan and Sasaki stay healthy, I think they should be, as things stand, kind of the front runners for those rotation spots to begin the season. Depending on how the schedule shakes out, they might go with a 5-man rotation for a bit as their starters continue to stretch out. But, I think ultimately if Sheehan performs the way he did last year, and that was coming off Tommy John surgery, which is even more remarkable, then it's really hard to not have him in the rotation.
Yeah, that's basically the way that we're operating as well. That's just kind of the assumption based on how well he pitched. And, Ohtani maybe needing a little bit more space between starts and that 6-man rotation. And Snell and Glasnow have long, extensive injury histories as well. So we're just kind of figuring, Sheehan will find ways to make a bunch of starts for this Dodgers team in 2026. You mentioned Roki Sasaki. They have already said this offseason they want him to be a starter. This is a loaded question. I'm not sure you have the answer, but I guess to the best of your ability, do you think that Roki Sasaki can succeed as a starter in the majors? Because we've seen him have success so far as a reliever down the stretch and in the postseason, but his early season as a starter did not go very well. So what do you think about Sasaki's chances as a starter at the major league level?
I'm a pretty strong believer that he can succeed as a starter. I think it's going to have to be the product of a lot of work, and it's also something where I'll believe it when I see it. I'd like to see more of a sustained stretch of him having some of his best stuff, which to an extent, we got that in the postseason, but even then, there was kind of a drop off toward the end. He was getting outs and preventing runs, but he wasn't quite as electric as he was in the beginning. So, a healthy offseason, he's working. I know while he was on the IL, he was kind of tinkering with a two-seamer, I believe. So it'd be good to see him kind of expand the arsenal. And maybe at the end of the day, I don't know if him throwing 100 is going to work with him as a starter, since he's been having this decline in velocity over the past couple of years. So maybe he just has to change things up a little. And if he can show that ability to adapt, then I do definitely believe in him succeeding as a starter.
Yeah, I know last season he dealt with injuries, and then there were stories about how he, tweaked some mechanics and things with his hips, and he came back and he looked much better. So hopefully an entire offseason to work through those things and get everything kind of suited out mechanically, he can bounce back and as a starter here heading into 2026. Let's take a quick break, and we'll return right after this.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
Welcome back in Fantasy Baseball. Today we're here previewing the Los Angeles Dodgers. And who do you see here as a sleeper for the Dodgers this season?
I would go with Andy Pages as a sleeper because he, as you said, not many true sleepers on this team. And especially when you consider those on the roster who are going to get the most playing time. And Pages will be in the starting lineup most days, I think. But yeah, it's, he was an all-star finalist last season, but even so, I think he is kind of under the radar, maybe because of how poorly his postseason went too. So, there are reasons to pay less attention to him than others in the lineup, but he had just overall a great first full season, or technically second season. He showed himself to be an impact player. He adjusted very well to center field, which is where he will be for the foreseeable future while Kyle Tucker is here. And, I think he's someone who's going to be solid. He's still very young and good power numbers. If he kind of nails down some of the details of the game a little more, then very, very solid player.
Yeah, he has been a little bit streaky so far. Offensively in the playoffs, he was quite bad, but, made one of the biggest catches in World Series history. So he does look great defensively. I think that will help him stay on the field for the Dodgers this season in center field. But just at face value, 27 homers, 14 steals, 272 batting average. I think if he comes anywhere close to that again, that would be very welcome from a fantasy perspective, especially in that lineup. We should get lots of counting stats as well, runs, RBI, if Andy Pages can live up to what he just did last season as well. What about a breakout for the Dodgers this season? Who do you have there?
Yeah, I've got Dalton Rushing, and this is kind of a tricky one because, again, similar to with Andy Pages in the postseason, Dalton Rushing did not have a good rookie year offensively. And I think a big part of that was him shifting to being a backup, which is something that he really has not done as a pro. And that will still be the case this year. That's what happens when, the Dodgers have a guy like Will Smith. But, I think that with an offseason to think about what it means to be a bench player and play, start twice a week, I think that could really help Dalton prepare. He hit at every level of the minors, and the Dodgers were always very confident in his bat. So there's a big gap between AAA and the majors, as we've seen with a lot of prospects coming up. But I think that, with more of an idea of how to approach his role and the experience that he had from last year, I think that he could learn how to be impactful in a limited role this year too.
Yeah, I mean, it's just tough from a fantasy perspective, right? Because I just don't see how he's going to play enough. I think from a real-life perspective, you're right. He could kind of form that 1-2 punch as a catching tandem for the Dodgers this season. But, I think he's talented enough based on the minor league numbers where if he was on a different team and just a starting catcher, I mean, he could potentially put up huge numbers for fantasy. It's just, I don't really know how that can happen the way that the team is currently set up. Like maybe he gets 1 to 2 starts per week, but that's probably the max right now, right? Like you don't really see him eating into Will Smith's playing time all that much. I would still expect Smith to play like 4 or 5 times a week, right?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, I think it's a possibility that early in the season, maybe they could limit his playing time a little more, in the interest of keeping him fresh for the whole year. That's pretty much what they did last year. And it really took, kind of a freak injury when he was hit with the foul tip to get Will Smith off the field. There's talk of, if Freddie Freeman needs extra days off, then Rushing could start at first base. But if you know Freddie Freeman, he really does not like to take days off unless he really has to. So yeah, the playing time is certainly the biggest question mark, biggest issue when it comes to Dalton Rushing, but take a step forward from where he was. I think he's very capable of that.
All right, big thanks here to Sonja Chen, who covers the Dodgers for MLB.com. Make sure to check out her work and give her a follow on X at Sonja M. Chen. And for more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to our full-length podcast, Fantasy Baseball Today, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Thanks for listening to our On the Beat team preview series, and we will be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.